Welcome to Two Guys in a Podcast. I'm Tom Waite.
And I'm Mike Cardinale.
Today we're going to talk about attitude. So, we all have attitude.
His is so good all the time.
We're going to talk about how you choose the right attitude.
How to stay positive. Especially in a negative situation.
Yeah, exactly.
So stand by. We're going to get after it.
Shut up and sit down.
I'll start the conversation with just that kind of catchphrase, right? So only you can choose your attitude. If you're allowing other people to choose your attitude, you're allowing them to dictate how you're feeling and how you're going to react and what you're going to say. It's very easy. Like, it seems like a long time ago when we talked about ego and stuff.
Right.
But ego creeps in, it gets in the way, pride gets in the way, and all of a sudden you're in a stressful situation. Something didn't go right at work or whatever, and it's pretty easy to go negative. And then what happens with being negative? Contagious.
It's just
everyone gets negative.
So I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
Like we have situations at work where we just have people that are miserable. I'm convinced that they're just in their lives general are just miserable, right? But what I'm finding myself, what's happening is that it's affecting me. So you're right. Like, do I choose to continue to be the positive person that I try to be, or do I allow the negativity to just
creep in on you?
And you know what?
Consume you.
I've been doing a terrible job of staying positive. Because I'm the type of personality that
you mean in that situation with that person or whatever,
or just
overall?
No, overall.
Really?
I would say it's not as. My boss and I were having a conversation just this morning because he's working third shift yesterday. He worked last night with me, and he's working tonight with me. Which,
for a specific reason, or
I can't really talk about the reasons why, but he. I really
like packing up your stuff. Or?
Yeah, I got a box on my desk.
Yeah, just waiting.
Yeah, it just gets bigger and piling up. But no, he really is probably one of the most patient people I've ever worked for.
Really?
Yeah, he's just got a really good. And I think
Does he stay calm?
Yeah.
I think we've talked about this before.
Yeah, I really do like working for him. I mean, he keeps things grounded. He looks at things from a positive angle all the time. So, but you're right. It's funny because when you walk up the stairs, going up to the men's locker room, or to the locker rooms, our HR department has a whiteboard right there, and it always has some, like...
motivational slogan or something, yeah.
Yeah. And one of them
is positive reinforcement.
Like you can't have a bad day with a positive attitude or stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like there's always something like that up there.
Mm-hmm. So, in the reality, like the people you mentioned that just seem to be always miserable, I'm sure they have excuses why.
But it's always somebody else's.
Yeah, it's everything outside of their control, right? It's life sucks, I was dealt a bad hand, whatever the case may be.
You're picking on me, it's always something.
Yeah, it's everyone's out to get me,
Pretty much.
I don't get paid enough, I work hard, blah, 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 right?
It's always something.
So they're not only letting other people choose their attitude for them through excuses, but they're the ones ultimately choosing to be miserable. So you got to ask yourself, do I want to be around people that are miserable? In your case, kind of don't have a choice.
Right.
However, doesn't mean it should affect you. You should still be the same, positive energy. Do you got to be a cheerleader? No, you don't got to be a cheerleader. But you can be you. You can be positive, and you can say, you know what? You're having a bad day. I get that. Bad week, bad year, bad life, whatever. I'm not going to let that affect me. Or what can I do to help you get better? And I'm knowing you. I know you've broached those subjects with them, and they may have basically thrown that back in your face, and
Yeah, pretty much.
Who are you to try to help me? And
I think the thing that's frustrating is I have a difficult time understanding why people are negative and nasty just for the sake of doing it. Like, it takes more effort, I think, for people to be...
I keep yawning.
I don't know.
I'm not tired.
Maybe need more oxygen. But, I mean, I just... Like, my boss and I were talking, we just don't understand why people are just Just
Oh, I got a theory on that. I think people that are like that don't even know they're like that. They literally are so conditioned to it that they just think that's the way life is. Like I think I may have told this story before, but in a previous job when I would go down and visit a plant down in Indiana, I'd get in there and the plant manager, the production manager, quality manager would be all sitting around a table, a break room table, with their feet up on the table, looking at car magazines,
nice.
telling me how busy they are. And I'd be like, what? So I'd sit there for 45 minutes listening to them just talk about whatever.
Right.
And in addition to talking about whatever, oh, we're so busy. This is crazy. We're so busy. And I'm thinking, we've been sitting here for 45 minutes with our feet up looking at car magazines, jacking our jaws. You're not that busy. You can't be, but they were busy from time to time to where it's so much so that they got so conditioned to always being busy and feeling like they had to run around like a rat that when they weren't busy, they still felt they were in that mode of still busy. I think people with negative attitudes don't even get like they're being negative. Like sometimes if you call someone out like that, they'll be like, oh, wow, you're right. Like we've been talking about at work. It's pretty easy to go negative when challenging situations happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially if you're used to it. And we've gotten into the mode at work where we're used to it. And so right now we're all trying to focus on service with a smile, basically, right? My boss gave me a great analogy. You walk into a restaurant and you sit down and you say, I want the prime rib. And I need to be out of here in a half hour. So let's go. So the waiter or waitress says to you, our prime rib, to do it right, our prime rib takes 45 minutes. So can I make some suggestions for other choices that might help you with your time frame to get out of here?
Right.
So a good waiter or waitress will try to, hey, not just say no, nope, ain't gonna work, can't do it. They're gonna say, we can't do it. Here's a little explanation why. May I help you try to find some other opportunities? His analogy was a lot more added to it, but that's the nut and shell of it. So, point being, don't just say no. Don't just go negative. Don't just go walk away and just roll your eyes and go, this customer's being a jerk.
Right.
What happens when you go to a restaurant and the service isn't good, the food isn't good? You normally leave.
Right.
Right.
You don't go back.
Occasionally, you might get someone that says, you know what, I'm going to say something before I leave. Right, and say, hey, FYI, the service was horrible or the food was horrible or whatever. But generally, people just leave and don't go back.
Right.
So at where we work, if we treat our customers in a way where we're providing food that isn't good or service that isn't good, they may just go somewhere else.
Yep, and you'll never know why.
Yeah. We're lucky that we have a customer that said, hey, we have internal issues that are causing you guys grief, and we get that, but you're having some issues too, just on your own. So it's been good. We've been having weekly conference calls with that company, and we got a lot of players from both sides at the table. It's all staying positive. We're all trying to work on the things, and it's actually everyone just feels better.
Well, there's research out there when I was going through my master's program that there's a lot of practitioners, we'll call them, because that's what they call them that study how, or consultants that study how customer provided services are looked at in a lot of cases. And what happens is, for example, let's say that I'm going to the gym, and let's say that there's a personal trainer there, and that personal trainer has their philosophy of how a person can make gains, either weightlifting or weight loss, either building muscle or losing fat, whatever that is. So when you sit down and consult with them, they're going to say, this is the way that you need to do it.
Yeah.
Right? But I'm like, well, but that's not what I want to do. Right? Who's right? Is the science behind what the personal trainer is saying right, and what my goals are not realistic to what science will say that my body will perform to? So in a lot of cases, just like in any business, if I'm a phone manufacturer, I know how the phone should be built and how it should perform, even though, say, Verizon, the carrier that's providing it to me, says no, that's
they might have other things.
So there's a lot of research out there that talks about the benefit to a customer, how the provider to that customer should act, right? Not be focused on what you're good at, but sometimes that relationship is just not good. It's not healthy. So you got to find a different person.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like in our work, we have a situation where it got very challenging today, right? We had a quality problem down in Mexico, and the quality problem was. It'd be easy to blame this quality problem on somebody or on another supplier or whatever.
Right.
But we played just as, when they buy the product, they're not buying it from our supplier, they're buying it from us.
Right.
So we're responsible to make sure it's right.
Yep.
So we could have done a lot of things better. Our supplier owned the problem, which is good. Extreme ownership. They said, yep, I screwed up. I put you guys in a bad situation and I apologize. Let me try to help you get out of it.
Right.
So in that regard, it was positive. It would have been very easy to just pile on him and, you screwed up and blah, blah, blah. We're still going to have the conversation about the problem, but it's not going to be emotional. We're going to get our customer out of trouble, get them out of the hole that we collectively put them in. And we kind of stay positive. So I sent an email at the end of the day to the team saying, hey, great job staying positive today. So we're meeting every week or every 2 weeks. To just, as a group internally, to just share our stories of opportunities where we could stay positive, service with a smile, Doesn't mean you have to accept all this bad behavior from, your customer can't call and just be a total jerk to you on the phone and you just sit there and grin and bear it.
Right.
You have to be professional and everything else, right? And our customer has also owned the fact that they caused some of our problems because they have some issues. They're addressing them and they're working on them. So it's open, it's really kind of opened up the relationship more. It's gotten it back to where it should have been anyway, where it was for years. And so we've been trying to focus on that service with a smile, trying to, if we can't do something, don't say we can't do that. Say, we have these other options that might be more appropriate, things like that, like the waiter saying you can't get the prime rib in half an hour, but you could get the steak or whatever. Yeah. So the idea would be, to be able to build upon those relationships. There's a book out there. I forget who wrote it. Gitmer maybe. Anyway, it's called Customer Satisfaction is Worthless. Customer loyalty is priceless. Right. And it's all about building that loyalty, making them want to. Where I worked before, it was a heat treating company. We were not the cheapest heat treater in town. And we charged a little bit more, but we got a lot of work and had a lot of good sales because they got the added service.
Right.
They could go somewhere else and get it cheaper, but they'd have either quality problems or service problems or whatever, delivery problems. So we prided ourselves on not doing that, but we charge a little bit more for it.
Well, I think what's important is the open, honest dialogue, and we've talked about that in some of our prior shows.
And emotional control.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you can't have the open dialogue, if you can't receive it because either your ego or your pride or whatever it is, you can't, because I get,
or you're just stuck in that negative world.
Right. But I get frustrated sometimes because when I talk to my boss, sometimes I worry about what I say because I've been told multiple times by multiple managers in the company I work for that I'm too honest.
Yeah.
And I don't really know what that means exactly. It's
blunt?
almost like I don't know, because it's almost like saying
you should bury that. You should squash that.
You're not. What I take it as is you're not being diplomatic enough. And I don't like playing those games, right? So if you want things to improve, to me, you have to get the
cards on the table,
right?
Yeah.
So, but not everybody is ready to have that conversation.
A lot of people want that, that's like we should be talking behind closed doors about that or something.
Right.
For some reason, like it's dirty laundry.
Right.
Sometimes you got to get your dirty laundry out and clean it.
So if you can't have that supplier-customer relationship with open communication.
Yeah,
I don't think you're going to build the relationship strong enough.
So we talked. It goes back to the foundations: ego, trust. All the stuff that we talked about before. We wanted to kind of recapture this because we're both kind of dealing with a very similar kind of thing at work of reminding ourselves and our teams, Let's stay positive. Let's attack the challenge. Like every opportunity is a learning or teaching opportunity. I think we've said that before.
Right. Yep.
But just because you have a problem doesn't mean it has to be negative, right? It can be a positive. You can turn a negative situation into positive just by your attitude. Just by going, you know what? We screwed up. We're sorry we screwed up. We're going to make it up. Here's what we're going to do. And then this is what we're going to do to make sure it never happens again. And if you do that well, and if you do that effectively, the customer may actually forget about the problem in the first place and go, man, you guys really stepped up to the plate and handled that like a champ, and forget the fact that they almost shut GM down, right? Or something, you know what I mean? So it's all dependent on how you approach people, communication, choosing your attitude, and staying positive.
The attitude thing is really, really difficult. So, for example, we were saying off camera how I was having this conversation with my boss about attitude. So we have this thing about how difficult, the conversation was basically how difficult it is to change a person's attitude. And so I'm from the mindset and from the belief that you can do it. It is difficult. However, the way to do it, based on what I've read and the research I've done, is that you have to change the behavior. To change the behavior, you have to enforce expectations, and you have to let the people know what those expectations are. So if you put the expectation out there, right, and then the expectation doesn't get met, you use it as a teaching opportunity or coaching opportunity, right? And if that doesn't work, then you have to have some enforcement of the expectation, right, to change the behavior. Once those things happen, the behavior gets changed. Eventually, the attitude will change because the person will be conditioned to understand that this is what's acceptable. This is how you're supposed to act with the acceptable behavior, and then that person over time, attitude will change, and that's where.
So when you say you could change someone's attitude, you mean through building. So when I said earlier, don't let other people choose your attitude. You're not saying you're trying to choose their attitude for them. You're trying to help them condition themselves to just choose a better attitude.
Yes.
Yeah. And you're trying to build the foundation that supports that. Because if somebody just all of a sudden becomes happy and go lucky and positive and everything, and it could be fake.
Right.
And you can see through that. And that's actually harder than just actually being happy. Right?
So if I came in and say you were having a bad day and I said, hey, you need to change your attitude.
Yeah, that's actually going to just make me have a worse attitude.
Right. It's not going to work. Yeah. But if I came in and said, hey, Tom, the expectation is that when we do XYZ together, that this is the proper behavior. Together. This is what I expect of you.
Yeah.
And then if you don't do that, say, okay, if this happens again, this is going to be the recourse for it. And over time, you will make one of two decisions. You're either going to be on board with it, or you're going to be gone.
Or I'm going to resist it. Yeah, I'm going to resist it, and yeah, exactly.
And eventually you won't have a job.
I'll remove myself from that situation.
So here's the challenge.
Have you ever had anyone quit their work because they thought they were miserable at their work?
Say that again?
Has anyone ever quit because they're miserable at work?
I guess I hadn't really thought about it.
So I've known people that say, I'm going to quit my job. Why? Because I'm miserable. I hate it. Well, why do you hate it? Everyone there is jerks. Or blah, 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 blah.
Right.
Is that the reason? Or is it maybe that everyone's a jerk to you because you're a jerk?
Right.
Right? So again, it goes back to that choosing your attitude. I agree with you 100%. Foundationally changing the process of thinking. So when they come in, they're not... We say constantly to everyone at our group, at our team meeting, plant-wide team meetings, we are with each other for just as many hours or more than you're at home with your family. Right? So why not have fun here? Why not support each other? Why not work together? Why not be positive? Even in a negative situation, let's be positive about it. I think we're going to have to wrap here.
45 seconds.
Yeah, so let's wrap. I think it was a good discussion. So let's wrap up on choose your attitude. Don't let other people choose your attitude. Find ways, like you were talking, maybe...
Find ways to be positive and get the job done together with teamwork.
And to build those good habits so it's easier for people to choose the better attitude.
Absolutely.
All right. That's a good one. Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Tom.
We'll see you next time. Make sure you subscribe, leave some feedback below. Subscribe on YouTube, like us on Facebook. Have a good day. Well, that does it for this week's show. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time on Two Guys in a Podcast.